knowledge, prestige, as well as the complexity of nature and the subtlety of truth. It also symbolizes the unknown and is there to show that every person sees the world in a different way. And I think your stories really do this in a beautiful way. So tonight we're going to present the Raven to you in just a couple of different ways. And the first is The Raven in Copper by Reid, one of Canada's foremost artists, an acclaimed master goldsmith, carver, sculptor, mentor, and community activist. Reid passed away in 1998, but he was born in Victoria, BC, to a Haida mother and began exploring his Haida roots at age 23. The journey of discovery lasted a lifetime and shaped Reid's artistic career. In 1986, Reid was presented with the Haida name, wait for it, the only Raven. Didn't know this when I chose the Raven for you, that he was an actual Raven, so, but it gets better and kind of weirder. I know you like the weird, so hang in there. So, also as a symbol of the Raven, we wanted you to have something that you could always have with you, and so we'd like to present you also with a sterling silver cuff that's made by Victoria-based artist Herb Lancaster. Herb is the youngest brother to have been born into the Namjis First Nation of Alert Bay in BC. Along with the Raven, this silver cuff features, wait for it, an orca, which I learned last night is a special symbol in nature to you. I don't know how this all happened, but it's just beautiful. So together, so everyone knows, the Raven and the orca symbolize truth and protection. And so, Jean-Marc, from all of us, we wish you well in your journey as one of Canada's great artists, sharing the beautiful truth and the stories that help us see each other and ourselves more clearly. Thank you. So congratulations.
Thank you. Is it time for me to...
Please,
yes?
take it away. Heard enough from me, people.
Isn't that great? Look, it is. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
A Raven, yes?
Yeah! Raven. Thank you. I want to start by saying that I am not done making films and TV, even though I receive, a tribute tonight. I'm 55 years old, and I will continue. I will continue, and yes, it's true. It's true, and it's great, and I'm happy to be here. 13 years ago, I don't think I was in this room. It was a big theater, and when I came to present Crazy, I remember the moment, and I remember the reception, the reaction of the crowd, and it was packed, it was full, and how the Vancouver crowd and the community appreciate this film. And I remember when I talked about it, I quoted Roman Polanski, because one day he was asked, what do you prefer in the whole process of filmmaking? And that night in Vancouver, when I saw outside what was happening, I quoted Polanski, who said, the lineup in front of the cinema. The lineup was like so long, I was with my two sons, and they were 7 and 11, and we spent the day going through your wonderful skate parks. I became a taxi driver for 2 days. And we did about 15 of them. And I took wonderful pictures. I got wonderful memories of this trip with the two bums. They're now 26 and 22. And they don't skateboard anymore, but they were really good. So it's funny also because it was so packed that people couldn't get in. And I remember hearing some French Canadian. There were like 4 of them wanting to get in, and they couldn't. and they were talking about going somewhere else, and I wasn't going to to watch the film with my sons, so I told them, come and take our places, and you're going to be able to watch the film. And I didn't know them. And a year later, I came back to Montreal, and I went to this restaurant called Le Mirac, and this guy's behind the bar, and he goes, "You, Mr. Vallee, I want to thank you so much." He was one of the persons that got in, and he didn't know I was the director when I got in. When I got him in. And so when he saw me, and then he became some sort of a friend at the restaurant, and he treated me very well with some glasses of wine here and there. And so that's a nice moment and memory. And I'm glad that you guys reacted and loved what I've been doing. I've been trying to do it honestly. I've been trying to do it with love and passion, and I see that you reacted to that, and I've been trying to do it with my love of music, which is up there, because that is what stimulates me. That is what that gives me inspiration. Often, it generates so much emotion, even without a story, even without a film or a TV series. We listen music, and we will listen to music in our lives, and we're touched because of memories attached to the song, or because of the song itself, the melody, the voice, guitar riff, or and it's funny how I've been trying to put music in the center of the projects that I've been doing and serving and defending, and this is what I am, this is what I do, and I see that it can touch people. And I'm grateful today and thankful to be here and to receive this award. And I thank you guys. And I think we'll have a conversation with this great guy, Tim, who loves cinema just like I do, and like we all do, I think. So thank you for being here, and thank you for appreciating what I've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. I'd like to welcome Tim Southam, who is also a director, good friend of Marc's and Jean-Marc's, and also the president of the Directors Guild of Canada, to host our chat with Jean-Marc. Welcome, Tim.
Greetings. I am Tim Southam. I'm a director. I've been stalking him. I'm not his friend. I've been stalking him. I'm also the president of the Directors Guild of Canada. And what the Directors Guild of Canada and the Vancouver Film Festival have in common is a celebration of voice, particularly Canadian voices, front and center. I think you know that the Vancouver Film Festival programs more Canadian films than anyone in the country. We're very supportive of this. Why does this matter? It means that people like Jean-Marc show up on our radar, because otherwise we wouldn't know about them. These venues matter a great deal. It also allows us to help or be part of the adventure of Jean-Marc then going into the world with his voice and exploring many, many other ways of making films in many cultures around the world as Jean-Marc Vallee, who was first and foremost celebrated as Jean-Marc Vallee by festivals like the Vancouver International Film Festival. So it's about voice. We're very supportive of this. We work very closely with the festival because we believe that Canada has an opportunity and a mission going into the 21st century to continue to express Canadian voices around the world. And what a pleasure, what an incredible joy to be able to have sort of Exhibit A right here. You know, he did it mostly by himself, but I'm more than happy to stalk him. And by stalking him, I mean we really actually met in July when I sat down with him to talk in Montreal with his crew and our crew present about the first episode, the very episode you've seen, of Sharp Objects, having had the experience, as many of you have, of having watched Jean-Marc's films and also his other series, Big Little Lies. Many of us work in television, in series. We've seen the sort of transposition of filmmaking into the episodic world. There is, again, Exhibit A is right here of how to do it. So what I'd like to do tonight is sort of help us, or be sort of my mission is to sort of get Jean-Marc to tell us how he does it, so that we can then steal all of those ideas and do it ourselves. So with no further ado, let me just jump right in. So I guess my first question is, here we are in the modern world of cinema. This show's been on, all episodes have been available. Who's seen all of it? Hands up. Oh, that's a lot of people I can't spoil it for. Okay, so we'll stick to very general questions about the ending. We'll have lots to talk about anyway. The thing that we probably all noticed about this film, this fantastic multi-part film, is that it establishes a couple of things really soon, really early. We feel the full weight of something on one character's shoulders. We feel the full. We smell the various environments she is in. We feel the heat. We feel a lot of things through her very early. We almost epidermically know about this character before we even know what the story's about. You know, so there's heavy-duty filmmaking going on in the opening credits, and then in the first sort of moments of this film, this incredible feeling of immersion occurs. And you know, Jean-Marc has worked with many writers and has written himself, but the one quality all of his films really do have in common is this incredible, this preternatural ability to sort of pull you into this feeling of being fully immersed in something with someone. So Jean-Marc, I think we're going to have to spend a few minutes, maybe almost an hour, forcing you to tell us in bits how you exercise this incredible exercise in sort of immersive filmmaking, of inducing a feeling of real subjectivity. Sometimes impressionism, certainly in Sharp Objects, a great deal of impressionism. Big Little Lies, you know, somewhat perhaps more linear, but in this case, absolutely impressionistic, serving the subjectivity. I'd like, you know, I'll motor through the kind of what I think are maybe the key chunks of what a filmmaker might be doing here, but please correct me. The first would be you have the Gillian, you know, you have the novel. You have a novel which is an incredible interior voice. So I wonder if you could spend a few minutes telling us how you and Marty Noxon sort of began to try to articulate the interior voice of this novel in film form. And ultimately, I'd also love it if we could understand why having, you know, 8 parts or many parts to this film has allowed you to maybe tell a crime story a little differently than if it were shoved into a 120-minute format.
Isn't he great? This guy. It's Gillian, the quality number one of this book, Sharp Objects, is the internal monologue. And Marty adapted episode 1 without me, and it, you know, that was her thing. And she was, she had the idea of adapting the book into a series because they wanted to make a feature film for the past 9 years. So when I read her script, and no other scripts were written yet, and I realized that there wasn't any voiceover, I already, you know, my first reaction was no. That's not good. Went to Gillian and Marty. We need a voiceover. This internal monologue is so powerful. So and they felt strong to try to adapt the book without a voiceover. And then I told Maria, did I sign this thing? Can I go out right now? Because this is professional suicide. And then I'm joking, so I had to trust them, and I had to find a way to translate this internal monologue, this quality from the book, into a visual experience and have the audience feel that, even though, because the way she talks about the world and her scars and her past and life and her job and her friends, it's so unique and beautiful and precise. And she has an angle on life that was the reason why I was turning the pages. And now this reason is not there in script number 1. So I really had, a hard time, and I went, oh my God. It was good, but this theme that I loved from the book wasn't there. And the quality number 2 from the book was her obsession with words. And still, that wasn't in script 1. The way she talks about the words that she scarred on her body, and when they burn, and why they burn, and why it's there, and what it refers to, and when she cut that word. And so we have someone now in a series that doesn't use internal monologue to explain and to seduce us in a way, because this internal monologue is, we kind of like this woman because she's so special, the way she talks, and so honest, brutally honest. And this is rare, to talk about yourself like this, and to talk about your wounds like this, and your flaws, and your demons. And so Gillian Flynn really wrote a special novel that is really, really good. So Marty was courageous to adapt it, and Marty and Gillian, because Gillian was one of the screenwriters. So they hired, Marty hired a team of writers to help her out, and they started, as we were starting to prep, they were writing the other episodes, and it was a leap of faith to just jump in and go, all right. But also to go back to what you were saying, even though I'm not writing the scripts on Dallas Buyers Club, I didn't write the scripts on Dallas, on Wild, on Demolition, on Big Little Lies. David Kelly wrote all of them. And now this one, I always ask the writers, even on Young Victoria, ask the writers to give me the final draft document, and so I can make a pass on the script and put my directorial approach in it. And also, if I have ideas of dialogues or stuff or cutting stuff, I just do a pass. And my pass consists of telling the story mainly according to the main characters. In that case, it was Amy Adams, Patricia Clarkson, Adara, and sometimes Matt Craven, Vickery, the chief of police, the detective, played by Chris Messina, Eliza, who played Amma, the sister. But so all these characters were main characters, and when they were cutting away, when they were writing scenes with other characters than Amy, so I take a script and I give it a point of view where I could change a paragraph that would say, like, this is an establishing to see the whole house, and then we see them walking inside. But if there's nobody at this place that is seeing them walking inside, I wouldn't write it this way. So I show the writers, if you write it this way and you want an establishing of the house, you got to give me a character that will look at the house. And then I pick up, I design shots based on perspectives and point of views, and mainly, in that case, Camille, Amy Adams' character. So take episode 1, I did a pass, and then I go to the writers, I give it back, and this is how I want to direct this, and it's all about also rhythm, and I'm not, I go and I do suggestions with transitions and cut some scenes if I feel like it doesn't serve the story, or because they're doing a first pass and then I react to it. It's kind of a second pass, but with a directorial approach in it. And inside the directorial approach, there's a music that comes with it, where I put it on the page. So in that case, Adora's husband, Alan, was one of the person who will listen to a lot of music. Amma sometimes, and Camille, Amy Adams' character, listening to this iPhone that belonged to a woman, a young woman she met at the rehab center, and she learns to discover this woman through her music, and she uses her music just like she showed her to use music as a way to escape, and so this is the first step, and then as we go along and as the collaborators get in, from Yves Bélanger, the DP, and John Payno, production designer, and the producers, and Nathan Ross, who's here with me, my longtime producing partner, so we talk, we challenge the material, and we start having ideas of what it should be, how it should be done, and shot, and so the thing about point of view here and internal monologue, the more we were getting into her head to see what she was thinking of, or what she was scared of, or what she could see in a flash, for instance, on the trunk of her car. If suddenly there's a word appearing there that reads dirt or dirty, seen from her perspective, and you see it for 6 frames, and from another perspective where it's not her POV, the word is not there. So we started to create this device, this visual device, where we're going into her head, and she has
on the highway
flashes.
to the exit sign.
Exactly, and changing, but that came in the post-production in the cutting room, where we had these shots of her driving through, leaving St. Louis to go to Wind Gap, and then there was this sign that was saying last exit before Missouri, and then we changed it to last exit before you change your mind. But you got to be careful, and you got to pay attention, and it's details that it doesn't matter if you don't catch them right away. Well, it's there long enough to at least see it and notice it, and then you wonder, was that real? And but we went into her head as much as we could, and we came up with this way of whenever she had a word burning on her body, we decided to put that word in her reality, seen from her perspective. And Gillian wrote 74 words in the book. She has 74. There's a mention of 74 words in the book, and we decided to do that 74 times in the series, through episode 1 to 8, where every time there's a word burning, it's going to pop up somewhere, whether it's on the table here, or
radio in the car,
in the car, or on the table, or
and a lot of that was added in post, was it not?
Yeah, a lot of
so that was pretty terrific work. Nathan Ross is here, Jean-Marc's producing partner. You may have seen the shingle Crazy Rose at the end of the show. That's their company. Jean-Marc also works very closely with a gentleman named Marc Côté, who has been a fellow traveler, and in a way has helped you perfect many of your techniques, or you've worked together on many of your techniques. And one of them is the strong involvement of very unobtrusive involvement of post-production techniques in sort of in making it seem even more organic and more done on the spot. So we can talk about that a bit later. But these, they're not really Easter eggs, but these sort of moments make it more surreal, make it more subjective, make it more Camille space.
Yeah.
Getting back for a moment to your statement of there's this program, Final Draft, and I write in it, you're a director. Of course, most of us who have had the experience of working in episodic television or even on movies where we may have been hired to make a movie will probably be feeling our way into the relationship with the writer and be exploring the possibility of, say, giving notes or influencing the script. This is a fairly advanced case where essentially you come with you've been asked to do this because you have a very strong and strongly identified and strongly celebrated voice as a filmmaker, and so there's, I think, an assumption or an acceptance politically of your strong involvement with the production draft of the script. Is that a good description of? Not all of us get to do this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe it's a good way to say it, to put it, and it's how I know, and it's what I love to do, and I'm being respectful, and of course it challenges the writers, and sometimes, but I go, let's have a discussion, let's have a talk. If you don't like the pass I just did, and let's challenge. It's always to serve the material and to serve the story and these characters and touch the audience. That's my goal. The goal number one is to create emotion, and storytelling, it's to be close to them and to have an experience where we get out of there and we know how one of them or a few of them felt throughout the journey that we saw for 2 hours or 1 hour, and we went through an emotional experience, and so the collaborator, all the people I worked with, this is the mission, this is the goal, and we're into details, and we love to, whether it starts on the page. Final Draft is the screenwriting program, if I forgot to say it, and so it starts there, and then in prep, and then on the set, and we have ideas, and we adapt to it, and it's a never-ending creative process where you have to be confident and see, like, I had to trust and be confident, trust that Marty and Gillian were going to be able to pull this off without a voiceover. And I went, all right, I'm gonna make this thing, and we'll do it, and we'll find our ways. And as I was starting to prep and to shoot, this idea of the words, it came after like 3-4 weeks of shooting, and we knew we were going into her head, and I was covering myself, and I was shooting, like when we arrived on the day with Amy and Adora and Amma, so I asked the crew to get out, and we shoot the rehearsal or the blocking, and we start to adapt to it and to be creative, and I look meticulously to what Amy will be doing, and then I'll be designing the shots along with Eve, the DP, according to what she does and where she looks. So if suddenly she turns like this, and I want to see what she's looking at, because we're embracing her POV. So depending on what she does, and since we're shooting handheld, and we're asking the crew to get out, and there's me, there's the focus puller, the camera operator, and the boom. There's 4 of us, and often the boom operator is asked to leave because there's no room left. So, and the actors have their little mics hidden, and then we shoot, and then becomes a communication with, they can use the space, wherever they want to go. There's no marks. We don't put marks on the ground, so you go from there to there. We know we're staging and we're making fiction, but we like to capture, like documentary.
So to manage this, let's drill down a little bit. So I'm guessing now one camera on a short lens, essentially a sort of a follow in a follow motif, at least initially, following the character into the environment,
Yeah.
looking occasionally where the character looks, but remembering where the character looks and maybe sending a second team in to film things later that could be in an edit,
No.
or just doing it on the
Yeah,
spot.
yeah, we
Got
do
it.
it. We
So-
do it on the spot.
On the spot.
We do it on the spot, and the funny thing is, our takes last 40 minutes.
Long time, yeah.
So the camera operator is strong.
Yeah.
He's got the camera on his shoulder for 40 minutes, and I know because I give him a break sometimes, and I do it. And after 40 minutes,
Yeah, even the Alexa Mini is hard to hoist. So you're in there. You're sort of you're in this environment, but of course there are no marks. So this influences your lighting technique as well.
available light. So Yves Bélanger has the courage to do this, to respect this dogma in a way, and to not use any cinema equipment around on the set. And we created the house, the interior house was created on stage. So he had to recreate the daylight. So now he had lights, but he didn't have lights inside. He had cinema lights on the ceiling on a grid that could come lower or higher. So this is the only time we use cinema spots. Other than that, it's always available light. The production designer becomes his gaffer because
With the practical lights.
it's
lamps.
practical lights. And so when we visit locations, Yves is telling John, give me a dozen of these kind of practical lights, or the neons there, can you change them for something else? Or, he's doing his demand to the guy who's going to give him meat to shoot, to the production designer, the artistic director, and who's creating the sets. And so it's they can move, and the actors don't have the heat from cinema lights, so it becomes very freeing for them. At the beginning, when they're first doing it, they're a little bit out of their comfort zone, and they question it, but then after a day, they love it, and we're just focusing on acting, and for 40 minutes, once we're done with a shot, we don't cut, and we go do the coverage on the other side. So non-stop, they redo it, and redo the scene. And also, when I say cut, I got 20 people coming in doing touch-ups, and it's long, and it's never ending,
So
and
don't
they do
cut.
stuff, and so when you don't cut, you have time to do your stuff.
And there must be one other element which is unusual for the actors, or disconcerting maybe even, and that's you. You're right there. I mean, you might as well be in the scene. I mean, we're talking about immersion for you too. I mean, not only in prep, but you're right behind the camera operator with a teeny little monitor and maybe nothing at all.
Just a little monitor
Little
on
thing.
top of the camera, yeah.
And I think you told me that maybe you talk during the scene. I mean, 40 minutes is a long time. So tell me a bit about the talking and maybe the languages and the coding of your talking during these live scenes.
Well, the good thing is there's the camera operator speaks French, and the actors, they speak English. So when I go left, he knows I'm not talking to him. And she knows that I want her to left, right, come in, come out. Or I go, droite, 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 gauche, 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 gauche. And sometimes I take him by the shoulder, I'm behind him, and I move him, because he's always like this. He has an eye, and he sees what he's looking at through the lens, but I see other stuff, and then I'm whispering him, and I'm going to move you, yeah. Bouge à droite, regarde, ouais, viens là. Okay? And then sometimes I push him a little bit, so it's all about, because, it's being there in the moment and having this way of communicating and reacting to what we see. And the actors, they know that when they hear whisper in French, it's not to them, and they stay focused, and they, sometimes I hear, shut up, Jean-Marc. Shut up. I shut up, and then it comes back, and
I feel like leaping into sound design, but I think I'm going to wait just a few minutes. And by the way, please think up. Please ask your questions, think them up, and somebody kick me if I'm not getting to the questions from you. This is so important. This is a different approach, certainly, to what many of us know, and it's so important. The big party scenes, the two big party scenes, and of course some of the bigger crowd scenes, that's still one camera and just a lot of hard work.
Yes.
So there's no grabbing shots, no stealing shots from over here, no long lens work from way back in the woods. Whatever you're filming, you're there, and you're in somebody's point of view.
With a 35 mil lens,
Yeah,
90%. 90% of our lens of predilection is a 35 mil. This is the one we use, and we hardly change it. When we change it, sometimes it's for a 25, because we want to see wider, we want to see more of the set. Like, for instance, she gets into the house the first time with Dora, she hasn't seen her mother for a long time, and we use a 25 to see the house for the first time. And then she stops and she sees Alan, and we covered it until, we're starting to shoot outside. We're outside, and I asked John Payno to give me a porch where I could shoot on stage outside on the porch. So we have a big cyclorama around the house, 360, huge, 42 feet high, and it's nighttime, and it's out of focus because we shoot with a depth of field between 1.4 and 2.
So there's just no light.
There's almost no light, and Eve is, so it's really hard on the focus puller, particularly that we don't do rehearsal. So I'm always next to him, and I hear him. And then sometimes I go, can you shut up? Shut the fucking breathing, man.
So all of this is adding up to a lot of vulnerability for your actors. You're dealing with some middle-aged actors who are used to maybe a different kind of lighting, a different kind of lensing, maybe longer lenses, and who therefore have, in a way, entered a compact with you to be completely vulnerable. Obviously, the material is demanding it, but also in the process. So could you talk a little bit about, perhaps with Amy Adams, just the elaboration of her character, certain choices she made coming into it, how she sort of approached the business of being a very different kind of Amy Adams in your film, this beautiful big film, this very interior film, than other films she's made.
Yeah. Yes, and just to finish, one thing about the 35 mil lens, now that I think of it, and by using one lens, what it forces us to do is to respect the distance between the characters, and therefore decide and becoming very specific with movements of actors to know when to shoot a close-up, because we're not going to change the lens to shoot a close-up of Adora, who's suddenly far away in the kitchen. She's far away. She's going to have a close-up when she be closer to Amy.
And how quickly did Patricia Clarkson understand this?
They do understand it very quickly.
I think I'll move forward now.
And it's funny because on Dallas Buyers Club, Matthew got it because the first few days of shooting, these two guys, they were scaring the shit out of me. They were so big and bold, and I'm from the less is more school, and let's not overdo it with these guys. And my reaction was to pull away. I don't want to be close to them. This is too big. Doesn't feel right and doesn't feel real. So I found a distance where it felt better after a few days, and it felt better. And then suddenly Matthew and Jared realized that I wasn't coming close. So, of course, Matthew was coming close to camera. All right, let's do it again. And then he was coming close to camera. I was panning. And then, so, see, it becomes seriously a dance and a language, and we find our shots on the day. We don't shot list. We don't design shots in prep. We wait to be on the set, and we figure it out. And we figure it out by relationship, egos, how we are, how we react to each other, like this, for instance. And Patricia had a little bit of a reaction like this at the beginning, where, are we doing my close-up? No. We don't do any close-up? No, you didn't come close. And I don't see why I should see you closer, or seeing you from her perspective, and and then she started, of course, sometimes. I loved her so much. She was so amazing, and she was such a trooper in giving herself. Wow, what a treat for a director to work like an actress like this. And Amy, to come back to what you were asking, she's something else. She's so cerebral, and she needs to understand and talk about it. And it's there, and every morning I was going to her trailer, and we were going through the day and talking about what she had to do, and it was, sometimes I was just listening, because it was too much, and I didn't know what to answer or to say, because it was so much, so much thinking of what she was in her process of understanding this person. And to me, it's just, instinct often, and I'm okay to revisit and to dig, but the way she did it, I was out of my comfort zone. And then she was arriving on the set, and suddenly instinct took over, and she wasn't like talking anymore and making jokes and doing this and that, and the understanding that she has of what we're doing in this language, that the grammar that even the collaborators I have developed through the years of doing this and respecting the distance and the lens, and she got it like this, and she was like moving at the right place. And see the hair, she has hair, it's always in front of her face, and I didn't have to tell her. She knew, depending on where the camera was, when to, and then pull it, and to, or when to not do it. And sometimes I was even, because it's nice not to always see properly, and wanting to see and to have more at one point. And she was in a vulnerable state, because every morning for 2 or 3 hours, almost naked in front of a makeup team, special effects makeup team, that are putting tons of scars on her body, on her naked body, on her flesh. So that puts you in this place where you got, 3 persons touching you, you're almost naked, and you feel what? You feel vulnerable, you feel like, and you have to go act for 8 hours or so, and be there in the moment. And so see, she had to deal with this. She had to, playing a damaged character like this, it's something. And to care for her the way we care, I think, at the end, because this is how I felt in the cutting room. Sometimes I wasn't sure on the day, on the set. I was talking to her, and really, she would react like this. It feels like I don't like her now. And, I don't know. And I wanted to like her and to care for her. And then I look at what we've did, and I was cutting with the editors, we're cutting. There's 6 of us, and 6 of us working on one episode. So we're not splitting the episode per editors. There's all of us are working on every episode, scene 1 to 10 with editor number 1, 11 to 20, editor number 2.
Did you ever double up editors and ask for several versions of the same sequences from 2 different people?
Not exactly, but we move stuff. So let's say one of them, Max, is working on 1 to 10. Then when he's done with his first pass, I look at it, and then I either give him notes, or I do it myself, or or I put him on something else because maybe we're late, or maybe I want him because of his specific talent and personality to be on another part, and then I could give this part to one of the other, and so we had a young kid, a younger editor that was clever with doing stuff that I've never thought of, and clever with music, and so he did.
Were the picture editors doing the sound edit as you went along?
Yes, I'm asking them to do sound design. We start doing sound design with the picture editors. All of the picture editors have access to a huge bank on our Avid. We have access to banks of sound, of different sounds and sound effects and ambiances, and we try to limit ourselves to 12 audio tracks and 6 video tracks for the first 2 cuts, and then we expand to 18, 20, and more video layers if needed be, because of the magic of Marc Cote. Sometimes we need more than 6 video layers, but
And when you're saying that, you're saying about maybe combining takes, separate takes into one shot, or knitting.
Yeah, because the way we shot, we don't care about continuity. And then the script supervisor on the
Although
set,
your script supervisor is one of your most important collaborators.
she is, but she
I think
never,
you've said she's your left brain.
yes, she is, but she will never stop because the glass is in the other hand.
No. Yeah.
So she's not stopping the process of, doing what we're doing and being creative because of this. So Marc does the magic in post, so he's going to erase the glass and put it in the other hand. Seriously.
So one conclusion we can come to is that it's this show is at once very small and very documentary-like, and also huge, absolutely massive at the back end.
Massive, yeah. The team, the post-production VFX team is massive, and we since we're like, let's say we have 2 cameras on Amy and Adara like this, and again, to respect the distance, I'm behind. I have a dirty foreground of Amy here and dirty foreground of Adara, and we see the distance between them with the 35 mil. It's close to the eye, and then Adara does something in the foreground that doesn't fit what she does in her shot. So Marc fixes it. He fixed the foreground, or he's going to tell me, I'm having a hard time with this foreground. Can you see if you have another take? So I'm going to check if the acting is as good, and then sometimes I help him out, and I say, yes, let's use this other take. Sometimes it doesn't work, we need to stay there, and then he's going to have to work harder to fix the foreground.
Yeah, fantastic. So, try it at home.
Sometimes, it's crazy like that. Sometimes it's we replace the heads. We're like using Alan shot. He's seated and everything is great at the beginning, but we need what he did with his eyes at the end, and we're going to morph and use his face 20 seconds later. We're going to bring his face sooner in the shot.
So I was going to heap praise on Henry Czerny, great Canadian actor, but it looks like I have to compliment several versions of him.
It's him, and he was amazing. He was great. But we do stuff like that where sometimes because of the way we shoot, and it's we want to do our days. We're responsible filmmakers, and I like to shoot from 9 to 6. So we're done at 6, and we start at 9, and I arrive on the set. It's true. But in order to do that, it's not that, I'm tired, and I want to go to bed.
You're in the 16 to 18 hour town, right?
Shooting 8 hours like this is like shooting 12. We're exhausted after, and so of course sometimes we do like 12 to 8 or 12 to 9, and exceptionally we have 10-hour days or 11, 12 when when if needed be, but it's rare. And therefore we do our days and we don't go over budget, but it demands creativity in post-production. And this is where it's going to cost a little bit more with VFX and because of this approach. And
So we should talk about music, because then, I think we should open it up as well. We should talk about sound design, because obviously it has everything to do with also changing the nature of time in the show. The show's concept of time is entirely subjective. It's entirely basically Camille's idea of time, which is no sleep, constant boosts, and a very disruptive attention span. So your sound edit, and of course many of the jump cuts and time cuts that you introduce as early as this episode play a huge role. But and I think we're aware of how the pre-lap sound and the kind of the work, how the sound design works. But you're taking it really from the point of view of music, aren't you? I mean, really all of this is music for you. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about music, and maybe also tell us how you got those Led Zeppelin tracks?
Yeah, we're so proud of that. That's great. Sue Jacobs, a music supervisor, she made a historic deal. She's the one who made the sale, and who sold it to the band. And the publisher and the label was already sold, but the band, that was a tough one, and she made it. She created she wrote a letter, and we talked about it too a lot, and she spotted in episode 3 this Alice character who was explaining how to escape and how to inscape, to escape from within with music, and she showed that to so that's how she sold it to Led Zeppelin, saying that Camille and this young girl are doing inscape with your music in order to feel better. Thank You, this song, Thank You from Led Zeppelin that we used, we had 4 tracks of Led Zeppelin, and the deal was that we could use them whenever, wherever, however we wanted for the whole series. So with these four tracks, so the series became, something with Led Zeppelin created the sound of the series, among other tracks. But Camille is going back often to these songs. And so they got in and they said yes. And but again, as I was saying, I love to do this, to use music and create just music when I'm by myself, and I react to it. And I find ideas, and I have my headset on, and some tracks give me this envy and desire to make films, and they're visual, and then I want to integrate. I want to share this, and a lot of these tracks, they come from past experiences, and I must admit that I stole a lot to my parents, to my dad, and my mom, and Alan is listening to my dad's playlists.
Well, and crazy, you of course have old tunes.
Yeah, Charles Navour, who passed yesterday.
Just died, yeah.
He became the sound of Crazy, this dad, this father figure, listening to Charles Navour, and then to see them, living and going through their experiences with these tracks as sometimes they play it, and this is what I love. It doesn't, it doesn't look and doesn't feel like a director or filmmaker is interfering and trying to touch the audience with a track, since they're playing the track, and we mix it in the room, so it feels like it's coming from their environment and not coming from great sound from film, So sound design again is important, and yeah, finding the characters to allow to put the music in the center of their lives, and decide what they'll be listening to, and it's great to do that in prep and to figure out this is her playlist, this is his playlist. And it's funny, I couldn't find Camille's playlist, and there was just a mention in the book from Gillian about at one point they're in a bar and there was a mention about 2 tracks, but and then just before we started to shoot, I had the idea of using this young girl as the music source of Camille.
The broken phone, the broken iPod.
And also because she likes to touch it, because it's edgy and it's dangerous, and she likes to cut, and she's trying to get rid of this bad habit, and among the others, drinking, and still see this woman full of flaws. We managed to care for her, and the humanity in Amy's face, and that's the quality of a human being. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't start to act. You put the camera on her face, you start to shoot her, and there's a humanity. There's something, There's something that you care for, that you love. She has this special thing, and the character. I mean, just at one point, it's from the book. She says to her boss on the phone, every time I come here, I just feel like a bad person. This is all she wants to be, a good person. And you go, heartbreaking, a cerebral journalist who's very picky with words, uses them to heal and to harm, wants to be a good person. So we care for this girl, and we want to know more. So trying to find, and to find the tracks that she'll be listening to other than Led Zeppelin. But the Led Zeppelin thing was all about rock and roll and moving, having a feel of maybe a retro thing, because it's an old band and their sound is vintage, but the feel of it is powerful. Rock is powerful. Rock and roll, it gives you wings, and what makes you dream and makes you feel alive. Mm-hmm. And it fit Camille a lot. And it's then Led Zeppelin sound with Robert Plant. I mean, come on, this is so sexy. It's sexy. And it was, in this environment with these young girls also, these young on roller skates, and so there was a sensual feel that we created with some tracks here and there, and with Led Zeppelin, but am I answering your question? Or?
Yes, and I have one more, and then it's over to you guys. So please help me out. The one question is, okay, it's fantastic. We're living with Camille, and why? Of course, because we have 8 hours to do so, more. So, and also one notes that this story, in a way, this crime story is unique in that it really, you really only understand the decisions of the characters because you know the characters. If some of those decisions or actions were taken in a more compressed narrative environment, like 120 minutes, maybe we wouldn't understand why they did them, but we do because we live with them. So could you comment on what the kind of the 8-hour movie has brought into your life, and why there's some value in sort of stepping into series?
Yeah, it's great, Besides the marathon, that is very hard, and that's why the 9 to 6 is essential when you do 90 days of shooting. Otherwise, I don't know how you survive. I mean, and I did 2 back to back. In 20 months, I shot 182 days. I mean, talk about, doing your job on a daily basis. You're directors, and we go out there at 9 and we start directing. So it's a lot, and you work with the head. So it's amazing to develop characters into. I learned to love also this thing at the end of an episode where there's, how you call it, the cliffhanger. Where you want the audience to wonder and to stay, and next week we'll have this, or in the next one it's coming. So I kind of love, we don't do this in feature, because it's 2 hours and then bye. And here it's different, and okay, it ends, but not really. And that's why I couldn't see myself not directing the whole thing. I would feel like I'm abandoning the actors and the crew that are not doing just episode 1 or 2. And I feel I want to be there and consider this like a feature film. And particularly when there's kids, and you start a relationship and they love you and you love them, and you don't want to abandon, but it's great to take the time and to come up with all these details and create different paces through the episodes, and we always try to find the right balance of rhythm and pace, but sometimes from one episode to the other, the pace is different, and you realize, and particularly with HBO, the way we do this is like a feature film. We shoot and we cut episode 1 to 8 in 35 weeks or so. Then once we're done, we look at the whole thing, we binge watch, and we go, okay, let's change this here, this, and then we adapt, to the whole, and then we put it on the air. So it's not like you put one on the air and then you start creating and you continue to create the others. It's like you wait until you got everything, and then, okay, are we okay? And so it's a new way. I loved it, and I want to go back to it, but I need a break.
One question. Were you at least block shooting some locations, or is it shooting in story order?
Shooting in story order, but like 1, 2, 3, episode 1, 2, 3, we shot together, some block shooting. Then we shot 4, 5, 6 block shooting, and then block shooting 7, 8, as the episodes weren't written at the beginning, all the episodes. So of course we couldn't block shoot 1 to 8 with but one location, we had to shoot everything from 1 to 8 with the exterior of the house. Mm-hmm. So that was a tough one.
And that's a big party. That's a lot. That's the whole cast, the works.
Yeah.
I just want to do a shout out to Matt Craven, who I thought was awesome as the sheriff. Another Canadian actor, great. Sounding well to my wife's Texan ear, not too bad on the southern on the scale of 0 to 10 as a southerner. You did quite well. Are there questions? Yes, sir. I see you. But please also make sure I see you in the back, and we'll just run a mic down to you right now.
Right here is
right.
Hi, Jean-Marc. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your work. It's been super influential on me, as I'm also an actor, writer, and director, and all that stuff. Just wanted to kind of say I was at home once, just browsing on TV, and Crazy was on. I had no idea what it was, but I just fell in love with it. With those first 4 notes of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, it just brought me back to the first time I heard that song, and it was so influential, and I listened to Crazy hundreds of times afterwards because it just got me at that point. And I've noticed a lot with your films, music, and you touched upon it, plays a lot in the sense of healing, especially going through trauma. The moment when Jake Gyllenhaal starts listening to music in Demolition really starts shifting his life. Was there a point in your life where you were influenced by a film or music that really wanted you to shape how you create your work, how you create your art, and then perhaps it did some sort of transformation for you personally that made you say, hey, this is how I want to create and showcase my art? Thank you.
Isn't that a great question? Wow. Thank you, sir. I think there's a lot of them. Maybe I'm aware of a few, but see, like the opening credits of Sharp Objects, it comes from a George Stephen film that I really love called The Place in the Sun. And the music was composed by Frank Waxman. So this theme was haunting me since I started to study cinema. And in France, there's a guy, a famous critic called Michel Bourgeois. He created a show in the 80s called Cinema Cinema. And as I was studying cinema in the 80s, this show was like a must for cinema students. And in Montreal, probably in France, it was a French show. And every week we were recording it on VHS and watching it through a bunch of students. And the theme of the series was A Place in the Sun that he used. So, so I tried to use that theme on a lot of films and never managed to succeed. And it has something so romantic and beautiful and soft. And it's funny how I used it in a dark place, a dark series. And
anyone notes that you reworked it, you reorchestrated it
Yeah.
for various episodes.
So if you binge watch Sharp, you can notice that it's the same melody from episode 1 to episode 8, but it was adapted. Each episode has the same melody from this composer, but it's different. There's a hip hop version. There's an a cappella version. There's a lounge version. The Acid, the song that you heard at the end and at the beginning, it's from a band called The Acid. Tumbling Lights is the song. It became a theme in Sharp. They made a version of this A Place in the Sun theme, and but I would say British rock and roll change really, and David Bowie maybe Signet Comedy, the Vallee Brothers, not to mention Space Oddity and Ziggy Stardust. These songs, I think I used them to transform myself from 14 to 18 maybe. And see, I didn't know I was going to make films at that time.
Straight back.
There you go.
It's all the only place I can see, so just yell. There we go. Gotcha.
Thank you so much. It was so instructive to hear hear you articulate your process. So my question has to do with your evolution as a filmmaker, and you talk so specifically about the 40-minute takes and all that takes to do that. Did you start your your directing career shooting in a more sort of traditional manner, and did you sort of evolve to this approach that you described, or is it something that I'm just curious about your evolution to this type of filmmaking?
Yeah, it was an evolution. I didn't start like this, and it happened with Café de Flore. Before that, I was using tracks and dollies, and I was doing camera movements. And if you look at Crazy, I looked at Crazy about 2 years ago or so, and I was like, oh my God, I did this pushing like this, and I can spot the camera movements and the lighting and the cutting. What the hell was I doing? And see, today I can see this. I didn't know I was being spot when I was doing crazy, and it looked like it didn't matter because the film touched a chord, and there's this universal story. People wanted to embrace it and love it, you know. So despite the flaws and the director who's showing off too much with camera moves and music in some ways here and there, and not putting it in the story, but just using it, you know, loudly, and so it's an evolution, and it started at Café de Flore with Vanessa Paradis and the 2 Down syndrome kids in Paris. I couldn't shoot if the crew was there, and if there was some spots, and if the boom guy was there, because they were looking at him like, "Hey, Jean-Marc, hello, Jean-Marc." They wanted to talk to me all the time, you know, and they were seeing a mic, and they were, "Jean-Marc, Jean-Marc."
Must have come in handy when the budget of Dallas Buyers Club was slashed. It must have been great to have a reduced crewing approach to filmmaking by the time you found yourself having to shoot it in 2/3 or half the number of days, and just having to cope. There's a spontaneity, certainly, that makes the film so lovely.
And see, so starting that moment, when I asked the crew to get out, and we were shooting handheld, Café was a decision to shoot it handheld without doing what I'm doing right now. Just an instinct thing to probably go quickly also, because I'm getting impatient with the whole thing, you know, and when it takes too much time. And that's why it was hard on Crazy, and even on Café, the DP, you know, they love the light, and it takes a lot of time, and they use a lot of flags, and they block it, they reflect it, and then I cannot pan right, I cannot do this because there's a flag, there's a spot, there's a thing, you know. So when I ask everybody and the DP, well, get your spots out of the fucking set, dude. Because we cannot shoot, and I don't want to see reflectors and stuff. And then we started to shoot, and then I remember the first day we shot like this. Then and then it went well. And then the second day, then we went to this theater, and we watched the dailies in a theater in Paris, and we shot in red. And I watched the dailies, and I had a cinema moment, and the film look wasn't there yet, and I went, oh my God, the crew is out. They're not coming back ever. I don't want to see 60 persons around me and looking and annoying the shit out of me. And that was a revelation. And then in Dallas Buyers Club and Wild and Demolition and BLL, get the hell out of here. You know I love you, get out of here.
And so Video Village is either non-existent or way back, and you're shooting. I saw you back there. You, yeah? Yep.
Hello, it's an honor to hear you speak. Patricia Rozema, a Canadian director, yesterday was talking about the art of the unseen. And with this piece, with this film, you show a lot of restraint, especially with violence. And I was curious about your approach, even with the flashbacks, if you shot more and then decided in post to hold back. With the art of the unseen, even with lighting.
It happened on Crazy a little bit, but I started to do this on Café de Flore, and then more and more as the grammar and the language, you know, with the collaborators is evolving. And I found that using a quick flashback, for instance, of violence, without the sound of the past, and staying there with the sound of the present is more effective. And we really get the sense of we're in her or his head. And but I realized that I need to come close at one point. If I'm on Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies, she's at the therapist, and I'm on a medium shot from her knees to her head, and I cut to the therapist. I come back to her on this size with a 35, and I know if I start doing this, that I have to come close to see the soul, to see the face, the person thinking about that image. Otherwise, the perception of going into her head is not as strong as if I use this medium wide shot on her, and then I cut to what she's thinking of, and I don't go close to see how she thinks, to use the silence. So we did, in Crazy, in Cafe, and through as I'm learning to explore this, and I'm learning to do it in the cutting room, I love not to use the sound of the past and to stay there and to use a quick image and maybe revisit it later. Like, that's the whole device of the first episode, is we don't have a clue of what she's thinking of. All these images of Drano, blood, a toilet. We get closer to a toilet seat. What the hell? What's wrong with this girl? You know, and we don't have a clue. But we go like this. What is this? We want to know more. So it's to be patient and not to be afraid of demanding an effort to the audience. And be patient. You will have a clue of what's coming, which was a little hard to get in Cafe. It took time. We took a lot of time in Cafe de Flore to give answers to the clue that some people didn't like it and quit it before getting the answer. Maybe that was my mistake.
So who's dying to ask the last question? Let's fight. Who'd love to ask the last question?
I see
This
Patricia,
gentleman.
she's here.
Oh, there's
Patricia Rosema is with us in the room.
Well, Patricia can ask her question later. Hi, Patricia. Let's see. Sir, did you seem like you really need to ask a question, and that's just great. Would you please do so? Yeah. With the microphone, please.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
Jean-Marc, I love the humanity of your films and thought the casting in Crazy was about as good as I've ever seen in any film, not to mention the spliced in music and what it did. But I was going to ask you a very obtuse question, and that is, what was it like to work with Mario Van Peebles?
Mario Van Peebles. There you go. That was a long time ago, and it was a great experience. And it's funny how I've met him. I've met Mario in Paris on an anthology show, and I just did my first feature film in '95 called Liste Noire, and then I got this call to direct one episode of an anthology show for HBO at that time, and it was like, I think, episode number 11, and 30 minutes, and it was about, the show was called Strangers, and it was about some American male or female finding themselves in Paris and being in a strange, dangerous, erotic situation. So I just made a film called Liste Noire. It was a thriller, erotic thriller. So I started to receive offers of erotic thrillers. And there was the first offer I got from the States, and I said yes. And this is how I met Mario Van Peebles. And this is how I learned to know him and to love him and the family and his father, Melvin. And then he offered me months later. He said, "Are you free? I got this script, this spaghetti western script." I said, "Spaghetti western? Jesus, really?" And I was a kid. I was a fan of Sergio Leone and all these films with Clint Eastwood. And so we sent the script, and we did Los Locos with a company called Propaganda. And as we were shooting in 18 days, David Fincher was shooting with the same producers the game in 80 days. And we had our indie, no money budget to make our spaghetti western and it was experience, and that's why after Liste Noire in this film that I looked at the films that I was doing, and I was like, why don't I love the cinema that I'm doing? And I love film so much, and then I started to write Crazy, and it took about 10 years, based on the story of this guy who was a friend of my ex-wife, and Crazy was also a scream to the world, saying how much I love cinema. Maybe a scream too loud sometimes, but I appreciate how the world responded to this film, and you guys. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you for your questions.